Seconded.
Calling it to order. Roll call. Council at Large Cummins. Here. At Large Postian.
Here.
Ward number 1 Hembry.
Here.
Ward number 2 Helm.
Here.
And Ward number 3 McNeil.
Here.
All right, time for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, to the agenda. If there are no changes to the agenda, is there a motion to approve the agenda? Cummins with the first and McNeil with the second.
Helm,
Yes.
Postian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins.
All right, then it takes us on to communications, and this is the part where anyone from the public can address the council. And the only time that it generally can address the council. If anybody would like to talk to the council, you make your way to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Seeing there are none, I will close that portion of the meeting and we'll move down to the consent agenda. And these are items that can be enacted with one motion, and it's the approval of the council meeting minutes from March 21st, approval of the library minutes from February 28th, approval of the library director's report from February of 22, approval for a Focus Up Foundation 5K on August 6th, approval of the Tipton Boosters Club 5K on June 18th, approval of township contracts for EMS and fire services, approval of the substitution of a 3/4 ton pickup purchased by Central Garage, the approval of the sale of fireworks equipment to the mechanics of a fire department, approval of the trip request for Dean Chalice's building at 57 Spruce Street, approval of another trip request from Randy Amison at 38 Spruce Street, approval of a trip request for Randy Amison also at 36 Spruce Street, approval of liquor license renewal for the VFW, the approval of the liquor license renewal at Walmart, and finally, the approval of the claims register, which includes claims paid under current purchase policy. Do any of these need to be pulled out for discussion separately? Seeing there are none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Cummins with the first and Postian with the second.
Postian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins, Helm.
Yeah.
All right, so that takes us down to city business. And the first item up tonight is discussion and possible action concerning a solar project proposal from Lathan Irvin Vonson and Associates. Mr. Wagner?
Yeah, as it's mentioned in the write-up, we'd like to propose a financial feasibility study to do a solar array that would be for the benefit of the citizens in general, because it would serve the Tipton electric utility. We're looking at an 11-acre site that's north of the wastewater treatment area. It could be up to 2 megawatts of power provided. And I guess what I'd like to do is maybe throw it to Louis and Dave and to maybe talk about the proposal and the purpose of the study and how you go about it.
Sure. My name is Louis Irvin, and Lathan Irvin Wilkinson and Associates. We've been advisors to RPGI, Resale Project of Iowa, on which Tipton is a member of, and that role is for wholesale power costs. And so Brian has approached us to put together this feasibility proposal, feasibility study proposal, to see if it would make sense, and if so, how long it would take to break even and start reaping the rewards of solar project. What we would do is we would use our knowledge of the pricing structure with RPGI, because it's not, it's essentially a separate entity from typical utility. So it's, the knowledge of your demand charges, your capacity charges, your energy charges, so on and so forth, have to come into play that most advisors wouldn't have that knowledge of, could get that knowledge, but wouldn't have it off the top of their head like we do as we design their wholesale power rates for RPGI as a whole. So what we're proposing is that we would go in and evaluate what the total cost of installing a solar array. We would try to optimize the size such that we're not trying to generate more than what we would use, because the excess that you can generate, you would get very little back in return for that. So we try to optimize the size. And we would use, obviously, the load profile that Tipton has, that we would get access to, we would grant us access to get that from RPGI or directly from Tipton. And we would, try to get a handful of pricing points such that we can show you, what that size would be, how long of a payback it would be. And the idea would be that it would be behind the RPGI meter. So as Brian said, it would offset what you have to otherwise purchase from RPGI. And that's how it would benefit the citizens as a whole. As requested from Brian, we propose to do this in a couple of phases. The first phase would be to kind of do what I just said, is try to figure out, what's a break-even point in terms of years payback. And then phase two, if so desired, would be for us to actually go out for requests for proposals from various developers, evaluate what those proposals are, and help negotiate terms, because they are very different across the board. I mean, every developer has something different that they will put forth. So that'd be the second phase. But for this first phase, we would look at first the solar array for the city as a whole, and then we would also consider a separate solar array that would be dedicated, so to speak, for the offset of the wastewater treatment plant costs. There's a lot of different ways we can do that. We can do it in net metering fashion, we can do it in virtual net metering fashion. I don't even want to get into the details there, but there are a lot of options that we can pursue and present as ways to go about it. And then lastly, one of the big benefits of the solar currently that makes it financially feasible is the tax benefits, and as a tax exempt entity, we wouldn't be able to realize that without having some other partner, financial partner that we would have to arrange to work with in order to get them to realize the benefits and then pass those benefits on to Tipton. So in a nutshell, I mean, that's what we're proposing to do. And as requested, we're certainly open to questions. Dave, do you have anything you want to add?
No, we have experience in doing this before for the city of Cedar Rapids. We've been doing it now for Lynn County, looking at Lynn County, Iowa, as far as looking at some solar projects, doing the same type of thing, where we initially do a feasibility analysis, and then depending on the results of the feasibility analysis, we can help you put together requests for proposals. We know of some different vendors, in Iowa that operate that we can send you RFP to. But again, we'd be walking you through every step of the way, as far as the development of the RFP, as well as, walking you through the feasibility analysis and kind of some of the different alternatives that we've seen.
Now, you did, or did you not do the State Center project? Were you involved in that?
Personally, it was before I bought into the company. It was Bob Latham who did that primarily. But yes, we have the information about that.
And
Knowledge.
generally, as I understand it, they did 1 megawatt or thereabout.
Yeah.
And their financing scenario would be similar to one that we're looking at.
Exactly.
And as I understand it, they're already past their debt
Yeah, and actually, I'm doing a study for State Center right now, and they recently paid off that solar array that they had installed. And now, in addition to that, though, every year now they get some tax credits coming back that flows into their general fund associated with the production from that solar array.
And when was that installed?
About 5 or 6 years, probably.
Yeah, probably about 5 years.
It's in 5 years paid off.
Yeah, about right. Now, of course, solar panels are going to be a lot more expensive now than they were then, but nonetheless.
What is it?
you know,
Yeah.
What is it?
No, what is it?
Oh, what is it? Yeah, absolutely.
But I think, you know, if we can show that what we can save by not buying wholesale power can be put toward the debt service. So the things, basically it stands on its own. That seems like a worthwhile project. If we can do something similar to the outcome State Center had, we're realizing the benefits of that after not too long a time period. So I mean, the proposal is 10,000 to do the feasibility study on the 11 acres. To do that plus the wastewater plant or the Sager area is 15,000. I would suggest that we look at the 15,000 scenario and look at both. Just while they're looking at the one, they might as well look at both. I mean, have you ever seen one of these that didn't come out feasibly, that, you know, in the end you said, hey, this isn't going to work? Or is there usually a scenario where it works?
Well, it's up to you in terms of the city and what's a reasonable payback. You know, if we were tasked by, you know, we have, I don't know, about 3,000 schools in Illinois, in Missouri, and Kansas, or not Kansas, Nebraska. And we've done lots of these types of studies, and some of them said we'd be thrilled if we could break even after, you know, 9 or 10 years. And others said it's got to break even in 2 years, or else we're not willing to take that risk. So I would say, we have never come across one where we said it's not going to pay back, since there's been incentives for solar. And I'm talking about production tax credits and, you know, rebates for smart inverters and things like that. So we've never done the feasibility study where we've said it's not going to pay you back. It's just a matter of how long it's going to take before it pays you back. If you expect the life cycle of the solar panels to be about 25 years and the inverter to be about 10 years, we can show, you know, kind of an expectation as to how long it would take to pay it back based on the RFPs that we would get back, and for our estimated cost up front first, and then if we went to the second phase, actual proposed cost, then we can give you that information. So, you know, we've never said don't go forward. What ends up happening is it gives us negotiating, frankly, to go back to the developers and say, you know, we don't agree. I'll just be frank. 9 times out of 10, no, 99 times out of 100, the developer proposals will tell you, you know, blue sky scenario. You know, it's going to pay you back in a lot quicker, and the assumptions they use, you know, most people aren't going to dig into those assumptions. And so that's part of our role, is to say, here's what our assumptions are, and then it goes to a tool for us to be able to negotiate better deals from the developers. So that's, instead of saying no, it's no at this cost, but hey, let's look at what it costs.
If this was pursued, what, I mean, I know things take time to order now. Do you have an idea of a timeline by when a project could be done? If you do the study and the council says, okay, take the next step to phase 2 and do the RFP, how long does that usually play out? Or what would you expect it might
Well,
be?
you know, kind of the timing is you kind of want to avoid the winter time period then too, as far as, you know, any construction or whatever. So get a feasibility study and get an RFP to try to get responses back from the RFP maybe by, the end of the year. And then have construction completed, the following year. So, maybe by fourth quarter 2023, it would be commercially operated.
The incentives and all the rebates and everything right now, they're going on with this is still going up pretty heavy.
But
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing right now for the solar is the investment tax credit, as well as the bonus depreciation that's available. So then you have to have a party, that would join in with you, that would take those tax credits to help bring down the cost of the solar panels. I think the investment tax credit now is about 22% of the cost of the project. And then there's some bonus depreciation where they allow accelerated depreciation, the first 5 years. Additional cash flow associated.
Did your feasible study show the cost of disposal after 20-25 years?
Well, just to be clear, the feasibility study would be based on the cost avoidance of paying RPGI for the wholesale, and then some assumed costs, which things can include everything, including what you just said, the disposal. But until you have a developer, which we're not, we don't represent any developers, we're independent. So that's part of what we bring to the table, that we're not tied to a developer. But until you bring a developer in and have an actual cost, to your point, you don't know if that's included until you have an actual cost on the table. But we can make that assumption and put a reasonable estimate in there for that, absolutely.
So how much heavy metals are actually in the solar panels manufactured today, as opposed to what they were in the 80s?
That's a good question. I'm an electrical engineer. You have any idea?
I'm actually involved with the other solar project that's going on in Iowa, the Alliant Energy, the 400 megawatts that they're putting in Lynn County. I'm representing another solar group. And actually, I just had seen something on that. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, I can look that up though.
Because one of my, not to say I'm a tree hugger, but environmental waste we create, whether it's lithium ions or solely dependent on electricity, everybody's played Monopoly. So if you become monopolized, you become controlled. And that's kind of clear, but the heavy metals that are in the solar panels themselves, a lot of people think it'd be big money to be the recycler of them. One person said to buy a warehouse in Clarinda and store them there and go into defunct after you make your money and run. I didn't think that was very funny because, that's not the realistic way to deal with those heavy metals. And, that would be the end product of, what we create for electricity for here.
Do you guys have a timeline for the first part of this proposal for phase one? If the council approves it?
Assuming approval.
Yeah.
Probably late June.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right, then I would ask for a motion concerning just phase one.
I would entertain a motion to do phase one
Is that for?
for the 15,000.
Yes.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a first from Hembry and a second from Cummins.
McNeil,
No.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins.
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Postian.
Yes.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Next one, discussion and possible action concerning the replacement of the Aquatic Center's rooftop dehumidifiers with a new rooftop unit. I'm guessing it's you guys?
Yes.
All right.
So I put together a little PowerPoint, kind of discuss what you guys been experiencing and the discussion of what the proposed solution is.
But I can see.
Yep.
I can slide
See,
up.
yeah, you know, I am gonna go around.
I'm good, right? Yeah.
Yep, I can see. I'm being lazy.
Just don't move. I
Okay.
can see right away.
Before, whatever it is that you put it with.
That's really expensive to dispose of solar panels. Wow, get through.
Oh, you probably want to focus on it. Do you want to sit really close or stand really close to me?
Can I, it's a little.
All right, I'm gonna select.
So anyways, so Brian with Kraus has been taking care of your guys' Tipton Aquatic Center for some time. And it's been kind of, I guess, lack of better term. It's definitely seen its good use. There's been a lot of mechanical components that have been failing. It's an R22 system, so they're making repairs. They're adding components to subsidize the well field that's been undersized. Or maybe not undersized, but not performing today, right? I'm making an assumption. So like, it's not, the well field isn't performing, they're adding components, they're replacing compressors. So it's kind of been an agreement and nothing more. You reach out to us because we handle a lot of mechanical equipment in Iowa and Omaha area, Nebraska. So anyways, we wanted to talk about what the proposal is, the style of unit, and really it's a little bit of an education on pool equipment, because like, you know, I think if you're not in the HVAC industry, you don't really know what we're talking about here. So I got 30 slides or so talking about pool applications. Gonna turn this on. No, I tested this earlier. Wow. Yeah. So real quick, like I said, Brian reached out to us. We work with him on a lot of HVAC projects, you know, commercial, industrial, all that. So a little bit about mechanical sales. We represent manufacturers. We're an independent manufacturer rep. You know, we have multiple offices across Nebraska, Iowa, and even in Illinois. I'm Jordan Cummings. I'm actually a Cedar County native, but I live in Davenport now. And Derek Rahecki, you know, he kind of comes from an engineering background. I'm more of a field applications background myself. So we get involved with Brian as these issues and projects come up. And I think a big pain point for you guys in the past was you were always waiting on service to come from out of state. We have multiple technicians here locally. So when it's something that these guys can't handle, you know, internally for you guys, we do have factory trained technicians, 2 out of Davenport and then 3 out of Des Moines. So we do have some local support to help facilitate that. Giving up on you.
You want me to be your clicker?
No, that's all right. So what we're going to talk about, what makes pool spaces unique, right? Like why can't we just throw a bunch of furnaces like you would have in your house? It doesn't work for a pool application for many reasons. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about HVAC design challenges in natatoriums. Natatorium is an indoor pool. And then kind of optimizing that system for healthy pool spaces and kind of quick really review what we're talking about. So what makes indoor pool spaces different? They're really high dew point, right? So there's a lot of moisture in that air. it's going to condense at higher temperature, usually at really high ceilings. The air is corrosive to steel. There's a lot going in there. The chloramines in the air. The space temperature is a lot higher than a typical office or classroom. So in a pool, you're going to be ranging anywhere between 82 to 86. For your guys' application, you're going to be closer to that 82, maybe 84 degree range. The big one is that humidity is much higher. So your dew point in a pool is going to be like 66 to 70 degrees. So at those temperatures, you're going to condense, which is a big deal compared to an office building, which is going to be more like 55 degrees. That the water is continually evaporating, right? You got this big body of water that's continually evaporating, and you need a different piece of HVAC equipment to handle that evaporation. The evaporation rate increases with features like slides and waterfalls, which you guys don't have, but as the activity increases, it needs that HVAC equipment needs to ramp up to handle that increased load. So like when you guys have meets and things like that, practices. One that I think gets overlooked a lot of times, outside of dehumidification, which is kind of that primary function, is the airborne chemicals and chloramines that are off-gassing, right? So as we're using those chemicals in the pool to treat the water, it's off-gassing chloramines, and we need to get rid of those. Not only do we need to get rid of those for human health, it's also extremely corrosive to steel and things like that in the building. So we need a piece of equipment to control the building pressure in that pool space appropriately. We actually control to a negative. So, that building, it's kind of a vacuum. We don't want that chloramines, going out into the office space. We don't want it going in the mechanical space and things like that. That's where you're going to see that increased rate of corrosion on all your bolts and everything that's steel.
You also don't want to push that vapor barrier out into your structure, because then you get that forming of ice and moisture in interior walls too. So the idea is we want to keep that space negative, so we're never drying and pushing that wet moisture out, we're pulling it into the space.
Yeah. You're constantly pulling it in and then out through the unit. And then from I'm sorry, I feel like I'm standing right here. I'm going to stand next to the space part. So not only for the building health, right? We talked about for human health as well. You guys have heard of swimmer's cough. Your eyes get real red. That's from that excess chlorinates or chloramines inside the air. So you want to have enough. You don't want stratification occurring in your pool. That's the reason why we can't just run dehumidifiers there as permanent solution, because you're not doing anything to get rid of those chemicals in the air. They're helping with the dehumidification, but I didn't need fault for that. So design challenges. We talked about we need to dehumidify, right? We need to ventilate, and then you need to control it appropriately. So we're just going to cover those real quickly. Dehumidification, there's two different styles of dehumidification in pool applications. There's mechanical solution. So we're using compressors and different coils and things like that to pull the humidity out of the air. That's what you guys currently have, right? So there's a compressor basically running 24/7. As I'm sure you guys know, if you've approved service tickets and things like that from all the compressor replacements and things, because it's running 24/7. Actually, this presentation talked about all the different styles. I went to the one that specifically is what you guys have. It's pretty much the most complex mechanical dehumidifier you can have, right? We have fluid coolers that have been added. There's glycol, there's pumps. I put an asterisk because they didn't even cover the fact that we have geofields. There's all this stuff that go into play to make that unit work. And it's definitely seen a better life, right? All the controls that are associated with that, there's a lot of complex controls as well. So it just adds a lot of complexity, and there's a lot of working, moving components that go into this. Some pros about mechanical dehumidification. There are some pros. You get to recycle that. Did you raise your hand?
No,
oh,
no,
sorry.
I'm just.
So there's that heat that, what's that? Oh, gotcha. So anyways, that there's some heat being generated from that mechanical dehumidification. We can take that heat and put it in the pool. So that is a pro, right? Like that's one nice thing about mechanical dehumidification. And you can also use heat pumps as well to when you're dehumidifying and adding heat to the space, we can do heat pumps. It's not really applicable for what we're talking about, but I just wanted to make you guys aware. Some cons, the pool water heating is pretty limited. I talked about you can recycle that heat, but it's pretty limited on how much there is. I talked about it's extremely complex in most cases. You have those glycol coolers, pumps, all the controls associated with it. And there's a lot less flexibility on your load, right? How much capacity of dehumidification you can do. And then the big one, when we talk about swimmer's cough and stuff like that, there's no ability to increase outside air to help with the indoor air quality. So we talked about mechanical dehumidification. I want to talk about the outdoor dehumidification. It's going to be a lot simpler concept. So instead of using a compressor to dehumidify, we're actually using outside air going through a high efficiency heat exchanger, and then it's pulling you're basically bringing in that dry air to dehumidify the space, to oversimplify it, right? So you have that heat exchanger, outside air, return air, it's crossing through, recycling the sensible energy, and then going into your pool space. Pros, it's extremely simple. It's more outside air, so it's a healthier space. And then with that air-to-air heat exchanger, that where the box is, where the air streams are crossing, makes it extremely efficient. And it's a lot more flexible on capacity. Cons, it's not a viable solution in climates like Houston and Florida and things like that, where it's humid outside 9 months or 12 months out of the year. Outside air dehumidification doesn't work. But a lot of the Big Ten schools, climates that we're in and in the north, the outside air dehumidification works a lot better.
Yeah, and to understand that plate, keep in mind that airstreams aren't actually crossing. If you guys don't understand how a plate heat exchanger works, it's two independent airstreams that cross through a plate. But not everybody understands. I know you're smiling, but not everybody understands it. But the air really never touches each other. It just crosses through that plate and transferring that in.
Ventilation. How does the amount of outside air supplied affect an indoor pool space? So that we're doing that to control humidity. It's reducing your energy consumption, and then the removal of those chemicals in the air. That's why it's so important. I'm not going to get too much into it, but ASHRAE talks about, ASHRAE is kind of a governing body that talks about different standards and things like that. In an outside air dehumidification unit, it tends to be about double the outside air that ASHRAE would typically require, that's a good thing, right? It helps remove the chloramines. I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit here, but throughout most of the country, most of the year, that increased minimum air coupled with the air-to-air heat exchanger, I think I got a slide coming up next talking about the compressor that you guys have been dealing with. You only need to run that about 9 to 10 months out of the year when you're using outside air dehumidification. That's what's so critical about all this. So hybrids, we talked about mechanical dehumidification, outside air dehumidification. What's being proposed is it's more of a hybrid that relies heavily on that outside air dehumidification. So stage one is essentially bring in outside air at that minimum. If that's not enough to meet the dehumidification demand, it goes to stage two, which it starts increasing the amount of outside air dehumidification. And then in the summers, like late June, July, and August, that's where there'll be too much moisture in that outside air. That's when we're going to have to bring on that compressor, and it's going to run mechanical cooling along with that outside air cooling. So instead of having 12 months a year you need to run that compressor, it's 2.5 to 3. And it looks like this, right? So it's that same diagram before, where you have the outside air dehumidification. We're adding a compressor and a hot gas reheat coil, but there's a lot less components, and it's all packaged. Just a quick slide to reinforce the level of compressor runtime, right? In Chicago, that's probably the closest. They're saying 1 to 2, and I think they're being, that's probably a little more or a little less than what it is. In our climate, it's probably closer to 2 or 3. From an energy saving standpoint, right? Not only are we bringing in more outside air, it's going to be more efficient, because now all you're paying for is that fan energy. I'm going through that heat exchanger pressure drop. So we're in zone 5. So the best comparison would be Boston, and the zones are rated for different temperatures and humidity that we experience in our climate. So it's about a 38% savings compared to the mechanical. which I think the most important thing for you guys is the reliability portion of it. But it's important to note that it's more energy efficient as well. Control, like I think you guys are using like CI3 or something like that. So CI3, you know, they're controlling the fluid cooler, they're controlling the pumps, they're controlling the fans, and they're trying to make that all come together. It's all going to be package controlled, so you can kind of eliminate all that cost associated with you know, outside controls. So it's all, you know, so when you're, what you need for a good HVAC or pool natatorium unit is you need to have space, temperature, and humidity control. That seems obvious, right? You need to have that negative pressure we talked about to make sure that the chemicals don't go and corrode all the steel. You need to have good indoor air quality so your occupants are healthy, right? And then the desirable features, which we're all covering, is that low operating cost, low cost of total, you know, life cycle ownership, and it's going to be a lot simpler. You know, we talked about it seems maybe like a complex system, but at the end of the day, I only need 5 sensors instead of differential pressure sensors on pumps and temperature sensors on fluid coolers and geofields. I literally have 5 sensors and I can control that entire unit. So it's extremely simple, you know, for Brian and Kraus to take care of. You know, if you guys want to take care of some stuff internally in-house, you could probably do a lot of it yourself. But it's extremely simple from a control standpoint. What's that?
I just said that was Adam.
Yeah. I'll send you the IOM.
Yeah.
So quick review. An HVAC natatorium unit needs to have, you know, it needs to be able to control humidity at all times. We are definitely controlling humidity all year in a more efficient manner. You got to have a healthy space. We actually compared the original bid documents this afternoon, and it looked like it was what, 20?
It was 22.6% outside air on your old system. This new one's going to be around 46 to 47% outside air.
So it's about double the amount of outside air. So you're running at a lower operating cost and you're bringing in more outside air. So it's essentially, you know, you have twice the amount of outside air. It's not hard to figure out it's going to be a healthier building. And the comparison I always like to think about, or you know, that gets my mind wrapped around is I've never been to an outside pool where I smell the pool, right? We've all been to the hotel pool, and that's what they always use, like a more lower cost mechanical cooling unit. You go in there and you can smell the chlorine, right? You go to an outdoor pool, I've never been to an outdoor pool where you can smell the chlorine. That's the same concept, right? So we need to control space pressure, and it obviously has all of that. We're going to remove the chloramines, and it's a lot more simple. Just as a couple of reference points, we teamed up with Augustana, and they just did a new, you know, what do you call it? Their performance, or competitive. Their competitive pool. That's what I was trying to think of. So they just did their new competition pool, same exact equipment. The YWCA in Rock Island, we've done multiple, basically YMCA is standardized around this, you know, at least in Iowa and Illinois.
Yeah, the YMCA is pretty much, even through Nebraska, the gentleman who is the CEO, the local CEO, has, between him and his maintenance staffs throughout the places he's worked, have come to the conclusion that the Innovet unit is the most economically friendly and easy to maintain unit out of all the ones they've had in the past, and they've typically gone back in.
Because everybody's had the mechanical dehumidifier as well, right? They've dealt with the short lifespan, the broken components, like there's a lot more that goes into them. So anyways, and the big one that we did, the U of I campus rec and wellness center right there in Iowa City. So just a couple examples of, you know, where it's being that same products in Minnesota, or excuse me, University of Minnesota, and there's a couple other Big Ten schools I think that are using it as well. It's absolutely more popular as you get farther north. It becomes more and more economical because of all the hours that you basically get to run without that mechanical compressor.
Drive around the Wisconsin Dells behind the back of a house on most of the big pool parks up there, and you'll see the Innovet sign on a lot of the equipment there too.
So last slide is, if you guys want to go do your own research, go to www.innovetair.com/breathe, and they got a ton of videos and different presentations. If you guys want to dig into it, do your own research by all means. The whole intent is to come here and educate you guys, or equip you to go educate yourself.
So the unit we're obviously trying to propose here for Adam and the city is it's an innovative unit. It's all aluminum construction. It's made up of material that's not going to degrade, fall apart, rust, corrode. Aluminum is the best product we can use in the environment that you have. Even stainless steel, if you guys have ever been into a pool and you've walked in and seen the railings that usually put stainless, those even degrade over time with chlorine. So this has injected foam panels. There's no bat insulation to get wet. There's nothing to mold inside this unit. And as you've seen how the design of it is, it's high percentage outside air and less mechanical cooling, so less component failure is the idea. There's also redundant fans. We have 2 fans in this unit. Even if we lost one motor, you still have a second fan. We can keep air moving throughout the space so that next motor or fan assembly would be able to be replaced. So there's some extra redundancy within the unit too. I mean, I know it's a big expense, as Brian has already shown, Brian Wagner and Adam, and we're also gonna clean up the roof line on for you guys up there. You have like 4 existing units, that are up on the unit, those will all come off, and you're gonna have 1 unit on that roof. So we're gonna set 130, I think Brian's gonna cap.
Yeah, we have this.
You gotta.
I forgot to show the actual work.
Layout, yeah, I gave you guys the plans that he's got.
Oh, they have it?
I gave it to
Oh,
him,
okay.
I gave it to him in paper, so he can kind of walk through some of that a little bit here.
Oh, well, yeah, I was, I don't think you have an extra. So you can, like I said, we kind of, with having 1 unit up there, we had to redesign. Okay.
We do have to talk about
Page down.
So it's a long due one. Perfect, thank you. You should get 20, 30 years out of it if you maintain it properly.
Yeah, 3 months.
Do you guys have any questions on the equipment itself? The actual,
What's the life expectancy?
yeah.
That's what he just asked over there. So properly maintaining this type of unit should get you 20 to 30 years. Doesn't say you're not, won't have a compressor that would potentially need to be replaced somewhere through that time frame, but it is possible that would happen. But overall, it sets some standard filters that have to be replaced. On a given quarterly basis, there's a standard maintenance washing condenser coils. But you should be able to see 20 to 30 years out of this unit if it's well properly maintained.
I have a question too. So, before last time we were here, we kind of discussed how having it on the roof is not the best idea. But you guys are still proposing to have it on the roof?
It was for ease of duct installation, connection. If you guys would want to look at putting it on the
No,
ground.
I was just wondering, because like before it was not good to have it on the roof, and now it's still staying up there. I was just wondering.
Where would you put it, I think? Is
No idea.
Yeah, I think that would be the big concern. And
That
then-
was, yeah.
And then you'd have all the extra duct work, so. I would agree that having more accessible equipment would be nice, but I don't think you have a lot of options without adding a ton of costs.
Okay.
One item we need to obviously bring to everybody's attention is that in that quotation that has the mechanical sales label on top is this afternoon before we came here tonight, we were provided with an email that was not very friendly to anybody in the aspect of price increase on the equipment. We were hoping that this was going to be pushed back, but tonight or today, they hit us with an immediate increase.
And even if we had the meeting yesterday and we
Yeah.
submit order, it was gonna be it's basically proactive, right? So
Right.
even if we got the order in yesterday, the price increase would have been applied.
Yes.
So it's not like we missed it by 1 day or anything, but we did find it. We knew there was one coming and we were trying to get this set up and present it to you guys as quickly as possible, but they've been holding off on price increases so long that they finally, the floodgate kind of opened up and
Yeah. So in there, you can see where I crossed out the original price and wrote the marked up one. That's a close estimate at the moment. We haven't had time to sit down with our regional manager and work through the final detail of that exact dollar amount. We based on a quick read through the email and how they're gonna attach that increase. It came up to about roughly $22,000 extra. It wasn't anything we were expecting quite that drastic, but I know, we don't, it's the market we all.
Like solar panels, they're going up, everything's going up.
Right, everything continues to get hit, and the longer people delay projects, the more.
The important thing, that price is based on, like, if it were to get approved in April. Because that I mentioned, it's a proactive, and it's roughly 2.5–3% per month from when it ships, right? So like, that number would be good based on if it got released in April. If we want to review at waiting longer, we would have to review that price. And I wish we had a more specific, concrete answer on that. It's just that those prices are moving so quickly. It makes it tough for us.
Something we all want to deal with, but it's part of society right now.
So, and to be clear, like typically a lot of times, when somebody takes on a project, they source it through a contractor. The contractor gets equipment pricing, marks it up a reasonable amount, and then, sells the whole project as a whole. Brian was gracious enough to essentially say, well, I'll just get out of the way. You buy directly from the factory, and then you can contract me, separately to save on that markup cost. So that's why there's two separate quotes, right? You're getting what a contractor price would normally get, and then his install and all the duct work and everything else that would be associated with rigging and things like that, getting all the old equipment off the roof, that would be, that separate price on the Kraus letterhead. There's quite a bit of duct work, well, not quite a bit, but some duct work inside the space that needs to get corrected. Brian, you want to talk on that?
Yeah. So I think there gave you that handout for all those for the duct work. So if we go to, I don't know what's on the top page.
It's basically in the same order.
Is it the same order? Okay.
That's how we need it.
Okay. So the first page there is talking about the demo of on the inside of the pool area. So we're reusing the old fabric duct, and then we are taking, there's that 136-inch spiral that's going down through like the center of the pool. We'll remove that. And we are taking and dropping the return air down so it's lower. So it's pulling off the bottom instead of off the top as it currently is right now.
And that's to help get that air cross off the deck and bring it back in. And also
Yeah.
The corners and that off gassing.
And then if you go to page 2 there, you'll see the demo of both DH1 and 2 units will be coming off the roof. We're also removing HRU 1 and 2 and all the associated duct that's with that. And then the remote condensers will be off the roof. So there's only going to be 1 unit on the roof.
What's the timeline on this project?
Lead time on the equipment is roughly 30 weeks right now.
Which doesn't work to the price.
Well, that's.
We're figuring that
That's
in.
already
That's
figured
what
out.
you
That's
got.
figured out based on the assumed, or based on the lead. Yeah, so we've added that. Basically, that proactively said, hey, this is what it is per month, starting June 1st or whatever. But
And then is the disposal of the old stuff in there?
Yeah, that's us
That's
taking
all
care
in
of,
there?
yep. We haul everything away and take it away.
After sealing everything on the roof, and if we get the new roof, maybe seal it.
That's,
Plug
okay.
everything up, all the deal stuff.
Yeah,
Perfect.
so our proposal, Kraus's proposal is Crane, we had disposal of all the units up there, the ductwork, the roof repair for the new curb. We also had capping the old curbs that are up there for like HRU 1 and 2 and DHU-2, and we're gonna have to do a little bit for for the new DH1. We might, like you said, we got some roof work to do up there, so we did have that price figured in there. We are using Geisler Roofing out of Dubuque. That's who we had sub for that project, so for the roof project. And all that roof was done with,
The same.
Yeah. same out of Dubuque there, so.
How long will the place, will it be shut down at all?
Yep, we're gonna have to empty that pool again.
Because like I said, we do have some ductwork that has to be modified above the pool area.
How much downtime would it be?
Well, we're thinking like 4 to 5 weeks, somewhere in there.
I don't know if you're painting.
Yeah.
You'd have to contact, some contractor to paint the walls, yeah. Which I've already contacted him.
So do we get to choose that timeline then of when it gets shut down?
Yeah, and like I said, it's that, the biggest thing is, and I'm not trying to, but like I said, just getting the unit in motion, get it started coming here. You know, we can always, if we have to, we can set that unit on the ground, and then we can work around, you know, a schedule. So.
And the city doesn't have to put any dollars up front on our side of it. You wouldn't be billed until the unit ships. So all we would need is technically like a letter of intent or a purchase order to get the unit released.
Yep.
Right now you're on a 30-week.
And then you start your 30 weeks.
It's the same way with us. We just need we're holding our price for 30 days because of cheap money. That's the biggest thing with us right now. So.
So what allows this to be done directly through Kraus Foster and y'all, as opposed to having to go out for bid under money requirements by the state?
Like I said, the only other thing that you can do is go back to an engineering and have an engineer, you know, and pay an engineer. Like I said, they're the engineer. I mean,
You'll have to pull the onion back a little bit.
Yeah.
Engineer, when he comes across the pool application, he usually works, he'll reach out to us, and the same process happens, right? We've already come out and measured the pool up and, you know, figured what the body of water is, what the estimated amount of occupants there are, and things like that. So like all of those checks and processes have been in place.
So the city don't have to open this up for bids? Is that you're doing the-
That would be, yeah. Let's see if Brian Wagner.
I guess I can't comment on that. Based on-
Now, I thought there were state limitations as to what could and couldn't be opened up for bids.
I guess I'm not the person to answer that
If
question.
you,
By its classification?
well, if you want to, if you're at a point of making a motion, you can make it subject to having the city attorney confirm that we're on the right track with going ahead. But purchase of equipment isn't necessarily a required bid. The other way you could look at it is if it's an improvement to real property, then it could be a bid. I was looking at it as just a purchase of equipment, but I think you have a point worth us confirming with the attorney if we go forward.
And then you mentioned the controls will be simplified.
Yeah, they'll be standalone. You know, so you could go one of two paths. We could put another BACnet card in there and let some third party, you know, Johnson Control, CI3, somebody come in and take all those BACnet points and then recreate it and put it on a very custom template. Or you could, and I actually had, for reasons of time, I didn't want to get too far into it, but we can either, instead of doing the BACnet card, we'll give just the standard user interface, and that will go to any computer on the network, and then you'd be able to see trending, all the operation, things like that. So that was a long answer for a simple question, but it's all standalone and it's part of that package.
If you applied your BACnet card, would Adam be able to change like average set points in regards to air temperature inside the natatorium?
Yeah, so the BACnet would only provide, or it would only provide points for an outside third-party control. So that would be, you would have to do that above and beyond, and I don't think it's necessary, to be honest, right?
Like you would rather just you have the user interface option, what you're really describing.
Yeah.
And that's a local system, basically. It's a land drop. We basically run through a web browser on your screen. We just give you a shortcut to that unit based on site data. Honestly, once we set the temperatures and that's a unit you don't need to do too much. It's more your scheduling side of it, because when you're going occupied versus unoccupied, that's really the two big pieces. Unless you really make a large adjustment to the water temperature, only then do we want to make changes to the zone discharge.
And to clarify, regardless of the path you went on that, you would be able to go to the unit locally, and open up the panel and make those same adjustments. But those two options are how you monitor and make adjustments remotely without going on the road.
Me personally, I would not want to go through CI3 advanced control. I want to basically go that if you did.
And just to reiterate, I know you mentioned about it, I just want to make sure, you said you get techs in the area.
Yeah, we have 2 startup technicians that live, well, both over right in the DeWitt area that work for us.
And there's 3 in the morning.
Yeah, 3 in the morning. And then obviously your own service guys.
Yeah. Because we talked about setting up a service agreement with you, once it's up and running. And then, so it's getting taken care of. They're saying 3 times a year, just depends on.
Yeah, it depends on just overall, the type, where you guys live, you're a little more rural. Sometimes it's a 3 to 4 time a year on the filters. Some are washable, so they're not even disposable. So like your exterior, where we put cold in the air through the hood, it's a washable filter. So it's one that go up, wash them, put them back in a few minutes. So, but, we live outside the.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a lot simpler system. So I think you're going to rely a lot less on factory support, just because it won't be needed.
Yeah, you guys have heard all of our trials and tribulations.
Yes.
And we're aware of it. Because they even looked at, in one of the options in here, there's another brand that we carry also called Soresco in the back behind the Innovet proposal. And initially when we first came and took a look at the site and thought maybe we could reutilize your existing condensers that you have on the roof. And my manufacturer wanted nothing to do with them, the Soresco manufacturer. Not even, they didn't know the whole history, but they just like, hey, we don't know what's happened. We would never, the warranty would be.
So with all of your guys' experience and everything, I think that we'll cure what ails our indoor pool.
It's kind of just another Band-Aid, right?
No,
Exactly.
This is basically almost starting over from scratch for you guys in that sense.
Yeah, this is stopping the Band-Aid.
Yeah, we're staying.
We're past Band-Aids.
I talked about the mechanical dehumidification versus outdoor dehumidification. We do both. It's when you get to the size of indoor pools like this, that's where the mechanical, it doesn't make sense to go down that path. So like we use the mechanical dehumidifier still for like hotel pools and small, we do it for residential applications. Then, you can kind of justify it. But when you get to this large, it just doesn't make sense to go down, in our opinion. Like I said, you can see it from Augustana and YMCA, YWCA, they feel the same way.
So if we go down this route, what mechanism will be put in place so we don't end up here again?
I
As
guess.
far as care for the equipment, the.
Yeah, the
usability,
maintenance,
the-
right. You got to make sure that
You're gonna go out every quarter, so you'll be out checking it out, right?
Yeah, like I said, we're gonna try, after it's in, we talked about setting up the service agreement. Checking
we
it
don't
3 or
have-
4 times a year, just to make sure that everything's operating, The other thing, like I said, with Adam can actually, we'll be able to see what it's doing, instead of, waiting for here from CI3 or,
So then what you're saying is the municipality or the city will have to contract with Kraus because we don't have a city staff member that's capable of maintaining the mechanical equipment.
well, you can, if you have somebody that's available, like I said, we just give the option for you. So.
Do you guys have a mechanical, like HVAC guy on staff still? Because I know you guys have one, right? But
I am.
what's that?
I'm 609 certified.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So yeah, if you have somebody here,
But I
staff.
don't want to maintain the aquatic centers, anything.
You don't want to be associated with,
I really don't.
like,
Maybe a disagreement with that guy right there.
and that's honestly with a lot. But it's not like you're not pinned in a corner where you have to use, factory service or you have to use Kraus. Like you have options. The fact that it's a lot simpler operation, there's a lot less sophisticated controls. There's no there's no third-party controls, holding it all together. There's a wiring diagram, right, from the factory that says, this is how it works.
The only piece that really ties you to anything on the factory is actually the software itself. That's about it, but that's no different than your car, tractor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same path. You can still go out and buy the controller yourself if you want and replace it if it failed. It's a standard Corel controller, CCO that you can buy right off the shelf. You can go on eBay, Amazon, find it if you want to. Obviously, you're not gonna probably know how to program it, because it's gonna require the software to download it, but that's how this unit is that much more simple than what you guys probably have felt the pain of in the past, especially with some of the other third-party controls. So,
Well, when they make reference to CI3, CI3 likes Northwest Mechanical out as well as Nexus, okay? But then when you talk about, board controller, it's no different than with the school district. The Dayton units are all using the same controller, which is kind of neat to be able to work with. And they're easy to understand. You read the manual and read and follow instructions.
yeah, and this the menu in this particular unit is very simple to follow. You just walk up and it basically just walks through you right through. I mean, there's literally a line that says set point to hit enter, and it shows you all the set points on the unit exactly how it's operating. And you can go to alarms, it'll even flash a red if there is an alarm, and then you hit the alarm button and it pulls up the alarm, the most current one, and you just arrow down. But if you've seen the Daikin ones, yeah, it's very similar. Daikin, one of our other brands, we obviously carry too. So you've been familiar with that.
And then the other side too, you talk about the outcast codes. That's a direct reflection of filtration inside the pool.
Oh, yeah.
If you increase your pool temperatures to where they're running above 82 degrees, instead of 80 or 78 for competition swim, well, then you get more airflow because of the airflow. So then the other thing that's in play with this pool specific is it's got the inverted flow. Water's injected on the bottom of the floor. And because of that, then everything has to be skimmed off the bottom. Well, then when the organics, which are reacting with the chlorines, precipitate to the bottom, end up in the bottom. So if the spool back jumps out, well, then it never gets pushed to the top, because they don't suck off the bottom of the pool.
All right. So now in regards to the pricings, if the council would entertain a motion, I'm guessing it has to also include which quotation that we have.
The Innovate's one we've been talking about all along, right?
Right, yes, that's the one we can discuss on that. We kind of went through the evaluation.
Yeah.
With the Soresco.
Right.
That's I'm almost on top of that scenario.
So, yeah, the other one that we were kind of talking about was the Innovate. And it is cheaper, so we have to, if there is a motion to proceed with this, I would ask that you include the base bid or the option alternate bid one. But the Innovate is the one that's being used at the Dells.
Back to what the question about as far as bid goes, how would you say?
Oh, and then also pending approval of the attorney.
Right.
Yeah, I was looking at it as an equipment replacement. We should clarify that.
Okay. So are you making a motion for the Innovate bid contingent on city attorney
Yes.
approval? And a second for Cummins. Helmut first, that's Helm.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Bastian?
Yes. All right.
McNeil?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Yep. All right. So now moving on to the next one. It's discussion. Oh, wait till everybody gets back to their quote unquote normal seats.
This slows down the bleeding that's going on.
I know.
About every other council meeting.
Yes.
No problem.
Huh? I hope so. We're gonna put our faith in you guys.
Appreciate it.
What?
Yeah.
What's up with you?
Done
We're
about
down
two
Main?
weeks, so.
No, I'm like 3 more items.
Oh, my God.
All right.
It's all about Adam. It's all about you. Second, first week's and I have to. Based on softball.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
All right. So the first one with Adam tonight is a discussion of possible action concerning the readiness of the city's pool to host swim meets. Mr. Spangler, please take the lead.
We had Jason Wester and Brian and a couple of us had emails back and forth. And one of our department head meeting, we talked a good half an hour about a bunch of stuff at the pool. And I said, we've done this. So Brian wanted me to compile an email to what we did in a timeline. So I was going to bullet point what I said. I forwarded this on to Brian. Brian just forwarded on to Jason Wester, the president of the board, Jim Becker, and then he copied it to Melissa and Brian. Pool heater, started noticing dropping pool temps the week of October 18th. I talked to every single one. We ordered it Tuesday, October 26th. Pool heater arrived Monday, November 22nd. Heater was up and running with temps by Wednesday, December 1st. Swimming lessons are back up and running with Monday, December 6th. So if you think all those dates, it goes pretty quickly. So locker rooms, ordered to be furnished close to Christmas. Furnished for locker rooms were up and running by Friday, January 21st. Furnished for the front desk area, office concession stand was up and running by Friday, January 28th. Dehumidification for the indoor pool, 2 portable dehumidification units were ordered Wednesday, January 26th, arrived, installed, and running by 2:45 p.m. on Monday, January 31st. Timing system. Since I've had this done, since March 7th of 2005, we opened the facility on June 11th of 2005. We have never used the scoreboard at the facility.
We as in the city?
As the city.
Has it been used?
Oh, the school has used it.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Because
we personally, they asked me if I want to know how to run. I said, absolutely not. I do not want to touch it. I don't want to break it. I don't want to do anything. So on Tuesday, February 8th, while setting up for the junior high swim team swim meet that evening, we were notified the scoreboard has been working since the start of high school swim season 2021. Tipton School District hosted 2 junior high swim meets on Tuesday, February 8th and Monday, February 14th. Never had an issue with hosting a pool is fine. Atmosphere is comfortable for the safety of the spectators as well. The mural. Out of all the interior walls in the indoor pool facility, the east wall, mural wall, has the least damage. I personally have talked to Tyler Roos that did the mural. He is more than willing to come and do touch-ups and fix it. So if you've gone up there and the mural is not totally ruined, like what some other people have said, I'm not going to point fingers, but all this mixing around repairs and costs of the aquatic center has been able to provide a great facility other than the month that we were not able to do due to the pool heater. Other than that month we were closed due to the pool heater, our facility has been safe to be in, use, and utilize for the Tipton School District. At any moment, if our facility is unsafe to be in a community, we would take immediate action and would not jeopardize the safety of our patrons, coaches, anybody. My staff, me personally, I've always pledged my staff and everybody safety. By code, by our code, everything. If it's unsafe, we would shut our doors until it was fixed. So that was I sent to Brian. Brian forwarded on to Jason Wester and his board. So they have that as we speak. So going by what I just said, no one's ever come up to me and say, is it safe to be in here? Is it safe? If it wasn't safe, I wouldn't open our doors. That's my job, and I would not jeopardize anyone's safety for that. So,
the readiness to host swim meets, you said that the pool has
yes,
hosted swim meets
yeah, we
this calendar year.
Yes, this calendar year, 2 junior high swim meets, February 8th and February 14th.
And there were no concerns brought forward from anyone.
No. We that day, we always take all the bleachers out, we clean the bleachers off, we put chairs out for the timers. We put a table out and a chair for the admissions for the staff, whoever they provide for taking admissions. And everything else they do. Brad Getz comes up, sets up whatever he needs to set up, and there does the speaker stuff. And then the next day, we clean everything back up. So, but they never said we can't host meets, because we did host meets.
And the scoreboard is not owned by.
That's what I don't know. When I was hired, that was, somebody said that the scoreboard was $75,000 was. I don't know if it's true or not. I never saw a bill. I never saw it. I think that was already up on the wall when I was hired. It was already up there. So I have no idea who bought it, who didn't buy it, who donated it, I have no idea. So
But as far as like city events, that's not something the city would pursue, is our own scoreboard system.
I would recommend.
And when it's a school event, they manage without it or have managed without it.
I guess they have. Like I said, when I talked to the athletic director on February 8th, when we were setting up, she said, I said, how's the scoreboard? Oh, we didn't get to use it the whole high school season. I go,
They
I
use
never did.
timers,
The stopwatches.
stopwatch timers, and they use 2 people, so that way they
Yeah.
compare.
And we, for our summer swim club swim team, we don't even use that. We just use stopwatches. So we've never used, and I never wanted to use the scoreboard.
The scoreboard was donated.
Okay.
Thanks.
I used to. So, and I'm not disapproving some of the stuff that Jason West, when he dropped it off and gave it to a utility clerk, not Brian. Some points that I know Brian Kerr and I have talked, and yes, they were valid points, but something to terminate right away. It says termination 3 times in the letter. And no contact for 2 years, and all of a sudden drop something off to us instead of just communicating. Because I've been here for 17 years, and I've never had an issue with the school. I've had a great relationship, and I still continue to want to be with the school. But I just think it should have been handled a little bit different.
Well, the item has been set up on the agenda as a discussion and possible action concerning the readiness of the city's pool to host swim meets. If you're recommending to the council or stating to the council that it has been ready and is ready and will be ready, then there's an opportunity for the council to pass a motion concurring with your evaluation of where the pool's at.
I will do so. I make a motion that we make a statement that our pool is ready to go.
Second that.
Cummins is first and McNeil with the second.
Cummins?
Yes.
Helm?
Yes.
Posturing?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Hembry?
Yes.
All right, so then moving on to number 4, it's discussion and possible action concerning the tennis court resurfacing project. Mr. Spangler?
Again, the next 2 items are approved this week for government improvements plans. If you look at it right up, about last time we resurfaced it back in 2009. This new resurface, they fill in low spots, fill the cracks, and then actually a lot of people are going to the blue and green, not the red and green anymore. So that's what we're gonna do it, as well as they're gonna paint pickleball lines on the tennis courts. So that's what that proposal is for, the tennis court, for the item number 4.
All right, any questions? Is there a motion? Cummins with first
Second.
and Helm with second.
Helm? Posturing?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Hembry?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
And our third one with the park is discussion of possible action, the proposals for pickleball courts located at the city park.
Pickleball courts, Bud Johnson and Monticello, I talked to you guys in the budget workshop, so. That's what it is. The northwest corner of the tennis courts, the 2 separate, just pickleball courts. Mike, if you've never played pickleball, you should play.
I'm at the game.
If you are, you might want to offer an introductory class.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
For
Yeah.
council members.
I'll tell you what, first time I ever heard pickleball, I went to one of my buddies down in Muscatine, and I went to the Y and played, and I see these 2 old guys, like, oh, we could take these guys. And they can spin the ball, and they can hit it, and I was running everywhere. So, it was really good.
So there's running involved?
Yes, sometimes. Sometimes.
It doesn't have to
Good
be.
if you want.
Yeah.
If you don't want to run, you don't.
There's tournaments, and I
Oh,
went
yeah.
to a place in Des Moines, and there are people that were having these tournaments, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I went to Arizona for spring break, and there was this one place where we were close to 16 courts, and every single court was full
That's the
from
way this is.
6 a.m. to, like,
We currently don't have a pickleball court.
Nope.
So with drawing lines on the tennis courts in this project, how many would that make?
Yeah. two standalone, because he said with the grant, we had to have standalone. So we're just gonna add lines on to those, so we have four. If two are being used, they can use it as net for type of home.
Do you plan on putting these to the north of the tennis courts?
Yep, I measured it out. We're gonna have to cut into the hill a little bit. Hopefully get rid of the bushes that I've been trying to the past 2-3 years. Yeah.
I got the thumb grinder.
There you go.
All right, is there a motion to approve the pickleball courts?
Curiosity, at least I'll motion it.
Helm with first and Cummins with the second?
Postian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins, Helm.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Adam. All right, so the next one, which is number 6, is a resolution that would set Monday, April 18th as the public hearing date regarding the proposed plans, specs, form of contract, and estimated cost of the North Avenue reconstruction project. Mr. Wagner?
Yeah, I can go into the contents of the resolution if you want, but basically it sets out what the project involves. It gives choices between concrete and asphalt. It also gives the bidders a choice on when to do the project. In one scenario, the timeline calls for the project to be done this year. In the other scenario, they can choose to have the project done next year. The idea is to see, there's some worry about doing a May bid. And is everybody going to be all tied up with other projects by then? So that caused, well, let's offer it for next year too and see if that makes a difference. So they're going to be those two timelines and then the two types of materials for building the street. He has them priced pretty closely. He has his estimate plus 10%, and they're within around 10 or 11,000 of each other. 654,000 for concrete, nearly 666,000 for hot mix asphalt. The proposed timeline for various things is mentioned toward the middle of the resolution, and we would come back with the results of the bids at your May 2nd council meeting. That would be your first opportunity to vote on an award. But this just sets a public hearing.
All right.
You looking for a motion for a public hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
McNeil with the first and Cummins with the second?
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins, Helm,
Yes.
Postian.
Yes.
All right, so that hearing will be set for Monday, April 18th. And now down to number 7, which is a resolution that approves the submittal of an application for State of Iowa Catalyst Grant for the Rhinos Building Project at 524 Cedar Street. Ryan, Linda? Fine?
Yeah.
She's pointing at you.
Yeah. This is something that the city has already agreed to do in purchase agreements. There were 2 between the current owner of Rhinos to the city, and then still subject to some testing being done. The city hasn't closed on that, but when the city does, that triggers a roof repair project, which the council's already approved. And it gives the purchaser, the developer, the opportunity to buy the building from the city. But there's a time period between when the city comes to own it and when the developer can decide to come to own it, which comes later this year. And during that time period, the goal is to see if we can put together grant funding that will bring down the cost of renovation. We already applied for the downtown housing grant for the 2 apartments that are proposed for the 2nd floor. And there's been some discussion between the city and the state that we might have a good chance at some funding, but not all the funding that we were hoping for. But still significant. The other grant that we said we would try for is regarding the 1st floor, which is Catalyst grant, similar to the grant program that was granted to the city twice for the Hardacre for the apartments and then for the theater. Now, this one is a little bit more problematical because they're looking for a housing component to go with the Catalyst grant that would be outside of the apartments that we're applying for the other grant. You know, they're not going to let us or achieve the housing component in one grant program and allow it into the 2nd grant application. So that might be a problem for the scoring of the Catalyst grant because there aren't any other housing opportunities outside the apartments up above. But still, it's worth a try because whenever a grant is offered, you never know what the competition is going to be or how many it might be. And so we're going to take a chance and see where we land on it. And so this would just be an authorization to apply for the grant. We can then show the state that we have a resolution authorizing our submittal. Nothing in the resolution as far as where it mentioned financial participation. That's all been approved by the council in other documents. So we're just asking for this resolution.
I'll make a motion.
Cummins with the first,
Second.
Hembry with the second.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yeah.
Helm,
Yeah.
Bastian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
All right, moving down to number 8. It's a resolution approving the application for an urban revitalization tax exemption filed for Mi Tierra at 413 Cedar Street.
Well, there are several pages attached to the resolution where you can look at the before and after pictures, but they put in a significant amount of money into this project. They have applied for the 10-year graduated tax abatement. And again, it's a 2-step process. The ultimate decision is made by the county assessor's office.
Motion.
McNeil with the first.
Second, and I just want to say the place looks awesome if you haven't been there. Everybody
Cummins.
needs to go. It looks cool.
And Cummins with the second.
Cummins.
Yeah.
Helm,
Yes.
Bastian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
All right, number 9, discussion and possible action concerning an application for the next round of congressionally directed grants, FKA as earmarks.
Yes.
Formerly known
As you'll remember, we were awarded one of these for $2 million for Highway 38. This is for the next round of applications. And it's one of those, it's a little bit more time than the last time we were notified of this. But still, the applications are due the morning of April 18th, early in the morning. So really, they're probably more likely due the Friday before. But right now, I don't have a project, a solid project to apply for. I guess what I would like to do is try to put something together and submit it where I don't think we can do a street project because they have too many requirements. We were lucky on Highway 38. We had a lot of the engineering done. One of the things that had been talked about, this is an example, is a rehab or a renovation or an addition to the ambulance building. One of the ideas that could possibly cause more people to want to sign up for call is the ability to stay over at the ambulance building. Brad has told me of cases where they have sleeping quarters where people on call can be present during their call period, especially those if they're from outside of town. Makes it more likely that they could be on call. That's a scenario that we could look at. I would need a lot more information in the next couple of weeks than I have right now. I think maybe one suggestion would be if the council is okay in allowing me to work with the finance committee or whatever committee and at least bounce ideas off the finance committee and give the authority to let me submit something and see how it comes in. You know, they're looking at the top 15 in this congressional district would be forwarded to the House Appropriations Committee. I don't know if they would be in the top 15, but it just seems like an opportunity to see if we can put an application together. And I guess I was looking for the authority to submit an application, but consulting with the finance committee and the mayor before it goes in. And if the committee is not confident of the submittal, whatever it is, I wouldn't send it in.
I'll make a motion. Helm with the first and Cummins with the second.
Helm,
Yes.
Bastian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins.
All right, so that wraps up that portion of the meeting. Now it's down to the reports. The mayor's report. I have nothing this week. Council, committees, city manager,
Nothing tonight.
department heads. All right, that brings us down to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Cummins with first and McNeil with second.
Bastian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Helm.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.